Coach Sheldon Harrison. There never been no comparison. You're live on the show. Sit back and have a listen.
All right. LDBC, LDMMAC, LDWMMAC. This is your boy, Coach Sheldon Harrison. You're live on the Coach's Show, live. And that's right, baby. That's right. Well, you guys, I'm going to go ahead and get right into this, man. It's going to be a long video. I'm going to get right in. Okay, the topic of this video is, why does MMA consistently destroy boxing? Why MMA destroys boxing? Guys, we already know the first thing, okay? We know the first thing is that in MMA, we always get the best fighting the best. We get the best fighting the best. In MMA, they don't believe in putting on mediocre fight cards. They don't believe it. And the best will constantly, like the matchmakers in MMA, whether it's the UFC, whether it's Bellator, whether it's Invicta, whether it's LFA, one Roadhouse Championship, whether it's Rising, it don't matter. Okay, it don't matter. The matchmakers in all of these MMA organizations, they do a good job of matching talent, with the skill level. Whereas when you go to boxing, in MMA, we're getting the best fight the best. We're getting those fights weekly. We get the best fight the best weekly. In boxing, it could be 3 to 4 months, sometimes 5 months, before we even get a fight that's competitive. Like, seriously. In MMA, they don't believe in letting fights marinate. They don't believe that. Okay, when the thing in MMA is, they want these guys after each other. They want them fighting like ASAP right now. They got to fight. In boxing, they let these fights marinate, man. They let them marinate for years. I mean, y'all remember the whole Mayweather-Pacquiao saga? That fight marinated for 6 years, y'all. We didn't get that fight for 6 years. And both Pacquiao and Mayweather were out of their damn prime. I don't care who it was. The fight didn't get made. The fight did not get made. I mean, Wilder Joshua. We've been waiting for 3 years for that fight? Still ain't got it. Still ain't got Wilder Joshua. Still ain't got Spence and Thurman. Okay, we still ain't got, Spence and Crawford. We ain't got that fight yet. We can't even get Showtime Sean Porter and Terrence Crawford. Okay, we can't get Devin Haney versus Tank Davis. We can't get Tank Davis versus Lomachenko. We can't get Teofimo Lopez versus Lomachenko. We can't get Devin Haney versus Teofimo Lopez. We can't get Devin Haney versus Shakur Stevenson. We can't get anything in boxing when we want to see it. In MMA, we got Ngannou versus Rozenstruik. We got John Jones and Daniel Cormier twice. We got Chris Cyborg and Amanda Nunes, Valentina Shevchenko and Nunes. We got those super fights, y'all. We got the super fights in MMA. I can keep going. We got Kamaru Usman and Colby Covington. We got those super fights, y'all. We got them. We got the fights. The fights that we want to see when we want to see them. And we continuously get the fights we want to see when we want to. Because in MMA, the fans control the narrative. I don't know if y'all knew that. In mixed martial arts, the fan controls the narrative. In boxing, the promoters control the narrative. The fans in boxing don't control anything. Okay? The fans in boxing, they don't control a damn thing. They control nothing. The promoters in boxing, they run everything. And you got a handful of guys. You got your Al Haymans and your Bob Arums, your Frank Warrens, and you got Eddie Sperm. Okay, and you got Kathy Duva. You got these people. They're in boxing. They control the governing bodies. They control the rankings. They control the referees. They control the judges. So when you got all these people controlling everything, okay, you know that they control what fights happen, and this is why we don't get fights. Because see, what happened with these people is they want the fights to marinate. They want their fighters to fight as many of these peons as they can, okay, to maximize their dollar potential. Fight a bunch of peons, and then eventually, like, we got to wait for years to get the fight that we want to see. I mean, if y'all notice that. I mean, seriously, we can't get the fights we want to see. And this, that's one big reason why MMA destroys boxing. Now, let's go back over to the MMA side. On the MMA side, there are no governing bodies. The organizations, they govern themselves. They govern themselves. When you go and look at the rankings in MMA, you know who the champion of every division is. You know their name. And you know that there's only one belt for every division. There's one belt. Now, I think the UFC introduced that BMF belt. But, that's not going overboard. Okay, it's not overboard. You know who the champions are. In boxing, hell, if you're a new fan of boxing, you don't know who the hell the champions are. Then you got, champion in recess. then you got super champions, and then you got regular champions. And then, man, look, it's so much in boxing that a normal fan, like a casual fan, they'll be confused as hell. They won't even know the lingo. Like, I'm sitting here talking about, yeah, he's the super champion, and some guy said, man, I'm new to boxing. I don't even know what the hell is a super champion. And I'm sitting here as I'm explaining to this guy, I'm like, here's a problem that's wrong in boxing. This is completely wrong. In MMA, they don't do that, man. They don't do that. They don't do that. The fans know. And two, and I told y'all too, the fans in MMA, they speak. When MMA fans say, listen, this is a fight that we want to see. When MMA fans point blank just say, this is what we want to see, MMA organizations, they immediately put those fights on. They do. Or when fighters in MMA call each other out, they put those fights on. Because those fights, they build up a lot of tension. They do. And that's the thing, man. That's the thing I love about MMA. That's it. Fighters, they call each other out. They do it all the time. And then, too, you have a plethora of fighters that are not afraid to call people out. Even in the women's division, even in women's MMA, you got the women calling out the top dogs. In boxing, you got dudes, man, sometimes they don't want to call nobody out. Okay, sometimes they don't even want to mention a guy's name. Sometimes they don't even want no smoke, period, man. Nothing. And it's like you got to pull teeth to get these guys, when they're doing interviews. Interviewers got to pull teeth with boxers to get them to mention somebody's name. I mean, seriously. I mean, it's the damnedest thing I ever seen. And let's talk about the fans. The fans of mixed martial arts, they're not going to settle for mediocre fights. They will refuse that in every step. They won't do it. They won't pay. Boxing fans, they settle for mediocre fights. If it's their favorite fighter, if it's somebody they like, they will sit, they'll watch those stupid fights, and the promoters will have no incentives to actually change how they doing stuff. They're not going to have any incentive to change because the fans still support the garbage. And then you have fans, they go after you when you want their favorite fighter to fight somebody. Okay, when you want your favorite fighter to fight your favorite fighter, boxing fans go after you. Well, what has he done to deserve a title shot? Look, man, we don't do that damn stuff in MMA. We don't do that stuff. When we say, look, we want Kamaru Usman versus Jorge Masvidal. The Masvidal fans, they come back, man, Masvidal gonna whoop Usman ass. The Usman fans come back and say, nah, Usman is a dog in there. Masvidal can't touch Usman. See, these are the conversations that we have in MMA. In boxing, we hear about money. Oh, well, who's a bigger draw? Who's a bigger draw? What has Wilder done to deserve a fight? He's not a draw. He's not an attraction. Errol Spence don't deserve a shot. He don't deserve a shot at Thurman. I mean, who has he fought? We don't get that in MMA. We don't get it. The only uproar that we had in MMA, there was one uproar, and I'll never forget this. It was months ago. It was when Jean Wallay got a title shot. Okay? And nobody, me personally, I was like, she don't deserve that damn title shot. She got that title shot because she was from China. That's why she got it. And I still will contend to say that. But the fight turned out to be one of the biggest stoppages, one of the best stoppages in MMA of 2019. One of the biggest stoppages in MMA I'm talking about one of the biggest knockouts, period, in 2019. That's what MMA do for you. And that was Jean Wallay knocking out Jessica Andrade. Jean Wallay put Jessica's ass down, knocked her out. See, that's what we get. MMA, we don't condone fights that don't make sense. We don't do it. Boxing fans, man, they be defending the hell out of their favorite fighter. And it's like, I have to ask these dudes, listen, man, do you want to see the damn fight? Why do we get all these excuses about, oh, well, Wilder ain't making this money. Wilder ain't doing this. How does Wilder deserve a fight? But then when you ask him, okay, well, why did Carlos Takam get a fight with AJ? Why did he get a fight with AJ? How did he deserve that fight? How you going to explain that? See, they ain't got nothing to say, or they come up with some other kind of goofy narrative. They come up with a lot of goofy narratives. Boxing need to take the philosophy, the MMA philosophy. They need to do it, y'all. They need to do it because boxing is slowly losing fans. I'm talking about literally losing fans. You see some of the OG channels now, some of these big channels, like they can barely get to 20,000 views on Boxing Talk. Like they barely can do it. You got Trill Boxing Talk, Hell, they don't even talk boxing that much no more, man. They talking politics. 7-8 Sports TV, he doing other stuff. It's just nothing is there in boxing. It's the same narrative. Okay, Wilder, AJ, Tyson Fury, Wilder. Okay, and then, we'll probably get some Devin Haney in there. We'll throw a little Errol Spence in there. We'll throw a little Terrence Crawford. And then, we repeat the cycle in boxing. Oh, we talk about if Bud is scared of Crawford. I mean, if Bud is scared of Errol Spence. Errol Spence ducking Bud Crawford. Okay, Keith Thurman don't want to fight none of the guys. Bud Crawford is scared of Sean Porter. Like, that's what we talk about in boxing. Man, guess what we about to talk about in MMA? Amanda Nunes finna fight Felicia Spencer, the #1 contender for the belt. Okay, Kamaru Usman about to fight Jorge Masvidal. That's going to be one of the biggest fights in MMA, period. Okay? I mean, we hate Conor McGregor, but you know what? He about to get back in there with somebody else. Okay, he about to get in there. Then you got Khabib Nurmagomedov. You got him coming back up in the mix. He finna fight Justin Gaethje. Justin Gaethje went in there and knocked out Tony Ferguson. Do you see all the storylines in MMA we got to talk about? In boxing, what are we talking? Man, look, we ain't even doing fight predictions. Man, dudes out here beefing with each other. Dudes out here just getting mad at people's opinions. Look, man, and people, look, man, it's getting to the point, and no disrespect to these brothers. Man, look, people are calling fights that already happened, man. And it's boxing fault. And dudes are trying to keep stuff going. They're trying to keep relevant content going. But it's impossible. See, boxing need to get the MMA philosophy. Okay, look, I was like Dana White. I don't know how he going to pull this off. I don't know how he going to pull it off. He managed to do it. And Dana White said, you got to change with the times. He said, we're going to be prepared to fight within the pandemic because the time commands us to do so. Boxing, they ain't trying to go that route. Boxing ain't trying to do nothing. They trying to wait it out as long as they can. And then you got even the other MMA organizations that's following the UFC suit. They're doing the same thing. Okay, you got kickboxing organizations. They've been fighting. They started fighting before Dana White even, started putting fights together. Hell, and Dana White building a fighter island. Okay, a damn disease-proof island where the fighters can go in there and fight each other and not have to do it's going to be an island just for fights. That's where they're going to fight. Everything is going to Fighter Island. Like boxing, they don't think like that. They don't think like that. It's too many guys with their hands in the pot. It's too many of these damn promoters. It's too many of these governing bodies. It's too many people in boxing. And boxing, it need to be broken up, man. They need to get a true governing body for boxing. One that's going to enforce the rules and one that's going to let the talent level fight the talent level. Not have like a #1 fighter fight the number 100 ranked fighter. We get that in boxing way too much. Hell, you got casual fans that can tell when a fight's about to be a blowout. Like, I swear, man, I was watching this bout, man, on TV with me and one of my buddies. And he didn't know who Danny Garcia was. He looked at what Danny Garcia was wearing and what old Rod Stalker was wearing. And pretty much he said, this dude finna get knocked out, man. This Stalker dude finna get hurt. Then he don't know nothing about boxing. My buddy don't nothing about boxing. He just said Stalker finna get hurt. He said, cuz, man, you see these guys wearing these expensive get-ups and outfits, and they come to the ring, and then you got this guy wearing like a hand-me-down outfit like Rod Stalker did. He said, man, the guy with the hand-me-down outfit finna get his ass whooped. We know he's a guy that's a cab driver. And by the way, Rod Stalker actually was a cab driver. Like, literally. They pulled Rod Stalker up out the damn cab. They pulled him out the cab to get his ass knocked out by Danny Garcia. Folks, this is the damnest thing I ever seen, man. One thing, MMA isn't very fighter friendly. The fighters don't get compensated as well as they should. Now in boxing, the fighters get compensated well. But see, for boxing, that's a double-edged sword for fans because boxers don't think that they have to work hard for leading legacy when they can just sit and fight these little bum fights and get, 6 figures. And think about it. They ain't got to take no risk. They can take these little 6-figure fights and stay healthy. So, of course, they're going to do that because they're allowed to do it. They're allowed to do the dumb stuff. They're allowed to do every last bit of that. MMA, they definitely not allowed to do so. Not on your life. And let's talk about fighters. In MMA, the fighters, they're much more approachable. And they're more likely to do an interview with you. Okay, like boxers, when you see them out and about, or you even try to interview them, you try to get at them through email or DM. Boxers don't tend to answer their email. Okay, they just don't do it. You got to find other ways to get them on the line. They don't answer, and boxers think that they're too good to talk to YouTubers. Whereas for the MMA fighters, I've only had like a few fighters just say, nope, I don't talk to YouTubers. But every fighter that I've approached, that they've gotten my message and read my message, every last fighter, they've all pretty much been like, yeah, I'll interview. Yeah, and they're polite. MMA fighters, you would think the exact opposite. You would think that MMA fighters would be a little bit more hard-pressed not to talk to you, because MMA fighters, I don't know, they think differently than boxers, man. They crazy. I'm telling you, they legit crazy. Nope, they'll talk to you in a minute. Because MMA fighters understand that their money comes from the fans. They know that that's where their food comes from. They know that they can't eat without fans. So they are more apt to interview, and they know that they can build their brand. And MMA fighters also understand too that all fight talk is on YouTube. Just about every major fight every fight channel, the fight talk is on YouTube. Okay, MMA fighters, they understand this. It's boxers that don't understand this. And you sitting here thinking, okay, it's a mathematical equation. It's really, really simple. You know that people are talking boxing on YouTube. Okay, there are boxing communities on YouTube. They're all over the place. Nope, you got these fighters like Bud Crawford. They think they're too good to talk to you. Okay, they think they're too good to talk to you. They think so. And I sat back and I'm like, damn, hey, this fight ain't even got like a whole lot of people. I mean, nobody even know who he is. Only us hardcore fans at YouTube, we know. The hardcore fans on YouTube know who these fighters are. And they'll tell you no in a minute. They'll tell you no, or they just won't answer. MMA fighters, hell, they bout it. They ready to talk right now. And and also too, what MMA fighters do, I like what they do, man. When you interview them, they'll take the interview you did of them. They'll start posting that interview on every MMA outlet they can do. That's what MMA fighters do. See, they think so much differently, man. MMA fighters think so much differently. I mean, it is what it is, man. Boxing isn't going to catch up, y'all. As long as you got too many greedy mofos with their hands in the pot. As long as you got too many greedy mofos that's always trying to make the decision for the whole group. That's always trying to make these fights and not make them and just let them marinate. Like, it's too many of these guys. It's too many Frank Warrens. It's too many of these Bob Arum types. And Al Heyman. You say, well, Al Heyman do a lot for the fighters. He do. But what about for the fans? What about for the fans? And I'm not saying that none of these guys in boxing, I'm not saying that none of these guys have not put on any good fights. They have. There's been some very good fights, but it's far and few in between. Guys, it's far and few in between. We saw, Wilder Ortiz. Okay, I mean, that was a bright spot. Those two fights were good. We saw, Errol Spence versus Mikey Garcia, who, to me, Mikey Garcia and Errol Spence shouldn't have never been fighting because they're just, Errol Spence too big, and Mikey Garcia should have never been in there with him. But nonetheless, okay, people wanted to see the fight, and people thought that something else was going to happen. No, it was total annihilation. Now, we got Errol Spence versus a Showtime Sean Porter. Now, that was a Fight of the Year candidate. Okay, that fight was Fight of the Year. That was a good fight. But see, how often do we get that kind of work? How often do we get it? We don't get it that often. And you got guys like Keith Thurman. He'll duck Errol Spence, but go in there and fight, a 43-year-old Manny Pacquiao, and then got beat up, got knocked down because he's sitting there running from the top competition. He running from Crawford. Okay, he don't want to deal with Spence, so he said, okay, I'll fight Pacquiao. Amazing. Keith Thurman been hurt all this time, and all of a sudden he was well enough to fight Pacquiao, but don't want to fight Crawford and Spence. See, this is the stuff that we talk about in boxing. This is what we talk about in MMA. We're not having these conversations. We are making post-fight videos talking about who fighter got their ass whooped that night. That's what we talk about in the MMA community. We're constantly talking about up-and-coming fights. We're constantly talking about fights that we want to see that's going to happen. We're constantly talking about this, y'all. Boxing got to get it together. Boxing truly, and honestly got to get it together. Because if we don't, the fans in boxing, they gone. The fans in boxing finna be up out of here, man. And I'm not completely out yet. I'm not out. But I tell you what, it's a whole hell of a lot easier to talk this MMA talk. It is. Because I have something to look forward to. In boxing, you just don't have a whole lot to look forward to. You don't. And you know, people are trying. You know, you got people that are trying to make content. I mean, you got people out there who really, really are trying to make very good content. But your options become very limited, y'all. Your options become limited. And once your options are so limited, it's just like, okay, to hell with it. You start talking about other stuff. You start talking about other stuff instead of talking about boxing, because ain't no boxing to talk about. But see, these promoters, they'll get it. They'll get it because when the UFC start really taking their fan base, and when brothers and sisters and people, whoever, start talking, you know, that MMA talk, then they stop talking boxing talk, and then when the promoters realize it's not a lot of people hyping these fights up for them, they'll change their ways. They'll change their ways and stop stalling out the damn fights. MMA is kicking boxing's ass.